seats again, and very sorry for this list.
Initiative. It's a vision. It's very good. I think it's give a kind of prospect picture for the whole Eurasia area for the first time in the history. As you just mentioned, it's a post-colonial, post-Soviet time. So it's very good. I think people should be encouraged by this one. But for its success, I think it's not necessarily, we still need many elements, to make it success. Although, it takes time for Silk Road to be successful. History, we see the examples in the Latin American countries, Argentina, Brazil in 1970s, they had economic miracles. Yeah, but 1980s, lost decade, 1990s, lost decade. Argentina, 1992, canceled their own currencies. So we should not be naive to the successful Silk Road project. So that takes time because it's about regional future, so it takes time. So we should be sometimes patient. Tell you something regarding the rail, the train between China and the West Europe. We have three cities. That is Chongqing in the Southeast Asia, Southeast China, and although Yiwu in the coastal area of China, although Nangang. From those three cities, we have trains. Go to through the Central Asia to the European, to Amsterdam or to Hamburg. It's good, but at this moment, still, it so much depends on the local government, Chinese local government, to subsidy for its execution. And why? Because basically you don't have enough things to be transported back to China. We don't have many things to be transported. So I have been watching all this. I say, what happened? What could we do? By saying this, I just say we have to be realistic and optimistic, but although be realistic, it takes time. It needs much more. It has many challenges. It needs much more hard workings for this great vision to be fully realized.
Zum Beispiel über Kasachstan laufen Containerlieferungen durch Deutsche Bahn in Zusammenarbeit mit unseren Eisenbahnen. Sie muss auch übersetzt.
No, we said it already.
Okay, yeah.
As I've already explained, the cooperation with China for container railroad connections goes chiefly across Kazakhstan, and this is important that this is encouraged and continued.
Ware kommen aus China nach Duisburg und nach Hamburg.
Goods come from China to Duisburg and Hamburg.
Der große Teil dieser Lieferungen unterliegt also das Territorium Kasachstans.
And the largest amount of these deliveries pass through the territory of Kazakhstan.
In letzten 2 Jahren haben wir diese Lieferungen verdreifacht.
And in the past 2 years, these deliveries have increased by 3 times.
The eastern 2/3 of Eurasia. Of course, Europe is just off this way, but this geography alone, just here, never mind a round spherical globe where you would see all of the 7.5, 8 billion people in the world. Just here, is more than half of the world population. And that means they are prioritizing not just the sovereignty within their own borders, but the connectivity across those borders. For a landlocked country, there is no way to evolve towards a new business model, if you will, as a country, without international cross-border trade. You have to reach the sea, you need airline connections, you need the internet, you have to reach new markets. So Kazakhstan is really front and center. And some of these countries are highly populous. Actually, Kazakhstan, Afghanistan is almost 30 million people. Pakistan is very rapidly growing towards, I think, almost 200 million people. So enormous populations that are starting to not only grow, but to grow together. And that is the transportation infrastructure. You can see the famous Trans-Siberian Railway. That is being modernized and upgraded in partnership with China, for example. You can see the road networks, the transportation networks that the ambassador mentioned, the railways that are passing from China through Kazakhstan, then through Russia, onward to Western Europe. You can also see more faintly the projects that are underway across even countries like Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, and so forth. And Afghanistan, having been watching this unfold for more than 20 years, I see that many of these have already been built. They're already up and running. You might have been surprised to hear what the ambassador said. They've tripled the volume of goods flow within just a couple of years. And it will triple again.
Since
and again,
1991.
and again.
Geographically, it's 7 times the size of Germany. Maybe it is as large as Germany, France, Spain and Poland combined. Has, of course, much less population, 18 million, very large cities. Astana is the capital. Under the leadership of President Nursultan Nazarbayev has made fast progress. The percentage of analphabets is the same as in Germany, only a tiny 2.5%. It is one of the world's most rich countries in natural resources and minerals, vast reserves of oil, gas, and a market leader in many minerals. The World Expo on energy, which just took place in Kazakhstan, is a clear signal. Kazakhstan has close partnership and modern Kazakh art. There's a lot of creativity also in Kazakhstan, of course. Astana will become the seat of the so-called Eurasian Council for Cultural Development of the Silk Road. So that matches quite good our objective, I suppose.
17, yes. Toleranz und Völkerverständigung ist groß angeschrieben.
Tolerance and the understanding, mutual understanding are important to us.
Das ist die Haupterrungenschaft unseres Landes innerhalb dieser 25 Jahre.
And that is the greatest thing that we have done, the largest thing we have done in the past 25 years.
Of independence.
Exchange program. So in many fields now, the exchange is going on. Deep understanding is reaching. So it's a all aspect process. So this is why I say we are optimistic for that, because it's one of the principles for this is people to people, and trying to, because in China basically it's so much Confucius culture, maybe in some sense. Central Asia is much more Islamic religion, background cultures, but we have this kind of exchange.
Anders also genannt One Road, One Belt. Also, wenn man übersetzt, wirtschaftliche Gürtel der großen Seidenstraße.
The project is the Silk Roads project, which is described as One Belt, One Road.
In erster Linie, es geht um die wirtschaftliche Entwicklung aller Länder, die beteiligt sind an diesem großen Projekt.
Primarily is a project directed at the economic development of all of the countries involved directly on this.
Verbesserung des Transitpotenzials, Verbesserung der Transportwege, Logistik und so weiter.
The means of transport, improvement of logistics.
Aber andererseits, das ist auch also Kulturaustausch.
On the other hand, it's also a cultural exchange.
Früher auf dieser großen Seidenstraße, alle Völker konnten sehr gut kommunizieren.
In previous eras, along the Silk Roads, people could communicate very well with one another.
Jetzt besteht auch eine Möglichkeit, dass der Kulturaustausch neuen Impuls oder neue Impulse bekommt.
And now we have the possibility that the cultural exchange will have new impulses.
Almost the fun thing, but it's of course very serious, is the old trading routes were by ship, and if there's a problem along the way, the ship just goes around it. With a train, you hardly can do that. And that's of course the very sound basis of the motivation that everybody involved in the Silk Road knows. We have to have enduring relationships with everybody along.
The Canton Fair is really the original meeting point for global trade and globalization. And it too welcomed people from everywhere on this map. So the economic relationships, the cultural relationships literally go back thousands of years. It's not just a rediscovery that's going on. And I think Asia is Asianizing, right? And with all of the growth opportunities here, I actually see a lot more Chinese who say, actually, I want to stay in Asia, a lot more Singaporeans, a lot more Indians, and the universities are getting better. And why are they getting better? Not only because of the wealth and the investment that's being made, but also through all of these partnerships, right? To demonstrate how brilliant they are by coming to Europe or by going to America, right? They can actually stay in the region and contribute even faster to that growth story. So I really believe, and I see the acceleration of what I think of as Asianization going on. So increasingly, you will want to go there and see it for yourself because they may not be so eager to, sort of come here and bring. China has 1.6 billion people, so a lot of them are also very young, even though they're also old people. India is very young, Southeast Asia is very young, and so forth. So you actually feel a tremendous sort of entrepreneurial energy there.
Thank you. And
most of these countries, which are between basically Germany and China, are still heavily influenced by Russia. So in the sense of fine art, that is my question. Like the prism through what fine art was viewed through in Kazakhstan for all of the Soviet time is very much through the Russian
question. Because it's also a question typical for a European to ask. Because restrictions to any cultural, which you observe when you come as an outsider, they may look like restrictions, but creativity does not exist without restrictions. When there's no restrictions, there's no creativity in principle. Also in our Western countries, art has restrictions. And I go to galleries. From my European perspective, I am maybe too quickly to judge. Because if you dig into the local culture, say for instance South Korea, like you have to look into the book of Kate Lim and you will understand, you will maybe too quickly judge this I have seen in that year, there, and it would not be contemporary. But when you try to understand the Koreans right now, it's absolutely their art from right this moment. So in that sense, that's also what I mean with meeting at a real eye level with other cultures. And in Kazakhstan, there are surely very creative people. Maybe some you would immediately say, yes, it's too Russian. But we have to be more open-minded and to see and appreciate what other cultures are doing. It's something which I also had written here already, which connects to your question. I've also been, for instance, invited by the Saudi government, and we saw many paintings in a couple of days. And I've seen a lot of real creativity, which is I've never seen outside Saudi Arabia. And it is never ever shown in the West for only one reason, because Western curators don't accept it because they cannot do it. It's a valid point you make, but we have, and we want to go into countries like your country and really meet at eye level, you have to have a real open mind and first learn what's locally of interest for the art.
I think it has been going on like this, because the core of this new policy since 1978 is opening to the outside world.
Yeah.
I think that's including opening to in the art world.
Yeah.
I think that's recently,
Here, right, the sort of 10 countries that we call ASEAN, they have 700 million people, so less than half the population of China. but they get more foreign investment than all of China does, right? India every year is increasing the volumes of inward foreign investment by more than 10 or 20 billion dollars more every single year. So there's a lot of collective progress in Asia around attracting that foreign investment. And of course that means that they have to reform investor regulations.
Through
So
art,
countries
who's going, I'm always looking at the audiences who come to exhibitions, and who likes, like all of you probably have an interest in art, who's coming to look at art. They're all people who are in principle belong to the at least middle and top category in any country in the world. So for businesses, again, if you have an interest in reaching out to that kind of part of societies, art is clearly not a medium you should overlook. It's anybody has a question?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yes, that's very personal. When I was in 1980s, I read a very famous Chinese poet, Yang Lian's poet.
Yeah.
But poem. But I never see him. Today, he told me that. Yeah. So it's such a wonderful thing.
Because I just roughly back from China today, from Nanjing to Beijing, Beijing to Berlin, Berlin to here. And, so it was a great project we have done there, which is German poets and the Chinese poets translating each other and sit down and translating each other. And actually we call ourselves poetry migration workers, because we worked so hard day and night all week, but the result was so great, because this kind of a meeting is not only an economy map, it's a very shaking, almost stormy cultural exchange. There is a meeting exchange on the very positive sides, like which is we could imagine there is a deeper layer of the like spiritual understanding of the modern transformation. In Chinese case, after Cultural Revolution, like Mr. Wang mentioned, after the Great Trouble, we actually, like Germany after World War II, questioning ourselves. What happened in this so-called the country or civilization for thousands of years, but seems totally lost common sense, even humanity.
And we don't think of Asia as having these melting pots. We think of Asian cultures as being so culturally distinct and unique or monochrome to us from the outside. But there is so much more circulation of people going on in Asia because, again, if you think about post-colonial countries, former British colonies are all exchanging people with each other. Indians are increasing their presence in East Africa, for example. Of course, in a place like Dubai, you have a mostly South Asian population, not an Arab population, and it's also providing